I didn't mean to spill the coffee, but the moment I bent down to clean him, slap, my head snapped to the side, and that's when I realized I just ruined my life. I wish I could say it was an accident. Maybe then it wouldn't haunt me this much. The cafe was already tense before it happened. Not loud, no. It was one of those expensive, quiet places where even laughter sounded controlled. The kind of place where people didn't just eat, they performed wealth. And him, he didn't belong there. Or maybe he did too well. I had noticed him long before that day. He always sat in the same corner. Always alone. Always calm. While other rich men snapped their fingers or complained about the temperature of their coffee, he never did. He spoke softly, paid generously, looked distant, untouchable. And I hated that I noticed him, because girls like me don't notice men like him. We survive them. We serve them. We stay invisible to them. That afternoon, I saw him again. But this time, he wasn't alone. She was with him. Elegant. Flawless. The kind of woman who didn't walk. She arrived. Her heels clicked against the marble floor like a warning. Her eyes scanned the room like she owned it. I didn't need anyone to tell me who she was. She looked like the kind of woman who had never been ignored a day in her life. And yet, he barely looked at her. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Table 6. My manager's voice snapped me back. My hands tightened around the tray. Coffee. Freshly brewed. Hot. Too hot. I don't know what came over me in that moment. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something worse. Because as I walked toward them, my eyes weren't on her. They were on him. Up close, he was even more dangerous. Not because he was loud, but because he wasn't. His presence didn't demand attention, it pulled it. His eyes lifted slightly as I approached. Just for a second. And for some reason, my heart skipped. Your coffee, sir. My voice came out steady. Good. Professional. Invisible. Exactly how it should be. But then, it happened. The slightest tilt of my wrist. The smallest shift. And the coffee. Spilled. It splashed across his chest. Dark liquid staining crisp white fabric. The room went still. Completely still. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. The words rushed out of me as panic took over. My hands moved before my mind could catch up. I grabbed napkins quickly, dropping to my knees beside him. I'm so sorry. I reached forward, pressing the napkin gently against his shirt. His chest. Warm. Too warm. He didn't move. That was the first thing I noticed. Most men would have jumped up by now. Shouted. Insulted me. Demanded my manager. But him. Nothing. I'll clean it, please, just. My hands trembled slightly as I tried to block the stain. The coffee had spread lower now, soaking into the fabric. And without thinking, I followed it. Lower. That was when I realized how close I was. Too close. My hand hovered near his abdomen, the fabric clinging slightly from the heat. I could feel it, the warmth of his body through the thin layer of his shirt. My breath caught. Why wasn't he saying anything? Why wasn't he stopping me? I can handle it. His voice was low. Calm. Too calm. I froze. Slowly I looked up, and our eyes met. There was no anger there. No irritation. No embarrassment. Just something else. Something I couldn't read. And that made it worse. I said it's okay. He reached out gently, stopping my hand. Not forcefully. Not rudely. Just enough to make me stop. But that small touch, it sent something strange through me. Something I wasn't ready for. I'll fix it myself. His tone softened even more. Like he was reassuring me. Not himself. And for a moment, just a moment, everything else faded. The noise. The people. Even her. Until. Slap. The sound cracked through the air like thunder. My head snapped violently to the side, pain exploding across my cheek. The force sent me stumbling, my balance gone as I nearly collapsed onto the floor. Gasps filled the room. My ears rang. I didn't even realize what had happened, until I heard her voice. How dare you touch him? I turned slowly, my vision blurred. She stood over me now, fury radiating off her like heat. Gone was the elegant composure. What stood in front of me now was something else entirely. I wasn't. Another shove. I hit the floor this time. Hard. You think I don't see what you were doing? She snapped, grabbing my arm and yanking me up roughly. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Her nails dug into my skin. I leave for 1 minute, and you're already throwing yourself at my fiancé? Fiancé. The word hit me harder than the slap. I didn't mean. Shut up! Another strike. Not as loud, but just as cruel. People were watching now. Phones were out. Recording. Whispers spreading like wildfire. Girls like you are all the same, she continued, her voice dripping with disgust. Desperate. Cheap. Thinking you can climb your way up by spreading your legs. I didn't. Liar. She pushed me again. This time I fell completely. The marble floor felt cold against my skin. Humiliating. Exposing. And through all of it, he said nothing. I looked at him, desperately, waiting, hoping, do something, say something, anything, but he just stood there, watching, silent. That hurt more than anything else. Enough! My manager's voice cut through the chaos as she rushed forward, but not toward me, toward her. I am so sorry, ma'am. This behavior is completely unacceptable. She assaulted me. The woman snapped, pointing at me like I was something filthy. She spilled coffee on me. The man finally spoke. Calm. Measured. But it was too late. I don't care. My manager turned to me, her face cold. You're fired. Right now. Get out. Just like that. No questions. No explanation. No chance. I didn't. Please, I need this job. Security. The word echoed in my chest. Final. I forced myself to stand. My legs trembled. My cheek burned. My dignity shattered. And still, I looked at him one last time. He was already looking at me. For a second, just 1 second, everything slowed again. There was something in his eyes. Not pity. Not guilt. Something deeper. Something heavier. But he still didn't move. I swallowed hard. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't even make it past the entrance before he called out. Wait! I stopped. Slowly. He approached me. Alone this time. Without a word, he pulled out his wallet and handed me money. A lot of money. I don't want it, I said quickly, stepping back. I know. His voice was quiet. But take it anyway. I said I don't. Take it. There was no force in his tone. No pressure. But something about it made it impossible to refuse. My fingers closed around it before I could stop myself. Go take care of yourself. That was all he said. No apology. No explanation. Nothing. And then he left. Just like that. I stood there holding the money, feeling smaller than I ever had in my life. He didn't defend me, but somehow, he was the only one who saw me. That night, everything changed. The video spread. Faster than I could have imagined. My face. My humiliation. My pain. Everywhere. Desperate waitress seduces wealthy CEO. Gold digger exposed. Public disgrace in luxury cafe. They didn't know me, but they decided who I was anyway. And him, he sat alone in his dark room, phone in hand, watching the same video. Over. And over. And over again. Not the slap. Not the chaos. But me. My face. My expression. The moment right before everything fell apart. He zoomed in. Paused. Studied it. Then finally, he spoke. Find her. The first thing Ji-hoon did when he got home was take off his jacket. Slowly. Carefully. Like nothing had happened. But everything had. The mansion was quiet when he stepped in. Too quiet. That kind of silence that only exists in powerful homes, where anger doesn't need to be loud to be dangerous. He hadn't even made it halfway across the living room when Ji-hoon, his mother's voice stopped him. Sharp. Controlled. Waiting. He turned. She was already seated. Perfect posture. Perfect composure. But her eyes? Furious. You embarrassed this family today. No greeting. No pause. Just accusation. Ji-hoon said nothing. He simply walked past her, placing his jacket down like the world wasn't already collapsing around him. Chairman Han has called 3 times. That made him stop. He's threatening to withdraw his support. A beat. He said if this marriage doesn't happen, he will make sure we regret it. Still, Ji-hoon didn't respond. That was when his father spoke. Quiet, but heavy. Is it true? A pause. You plan to call off the engagement? Ji-hoon exhaled slowly. Then finally, yes. The word dropped like a bomb. His mother stood immediately. You will do no such thing. He turned to face her fully now, for the first time since walking in. I'm not marrying her. His voice was calm. Too calm. Because of a waitress, she snapped. Because of some cheap scandal that is already all over the internet. Ji-hoon's jaw tightened slightly, but his expression didn't change. She assaulted someone in public, he said quietly, without asking what happened, without thinking. She defended her dignity, his mother shot back. That girl was touching you. She wasn't. Silence. She wasn't seducing me, he continued, his tone steady. She was trying to fix a mistake. His mother laughed, cold, disbelieving. You expect me to believe that, she said. A woman on her knees, touching you, and you want to call that innocent? Ji-hoon didn't answer immediately, because suddenly, that moment came back. The warmth of her hands, the way she hesitated, the way her breath caught, but most of all, her eyes. Not bold, not seductive, afraid. She was terrified. The words came out quieter this time, but firmer. And I did nothing. That part, he didn't say out loud, but it sat heavily in his chest. His father sighed. This is not about feelings, he said. This marriage is a strategic alliance. You know that. I don't care. That was the first crack. His mother stepped closer now, her voice dropping. Dangerous. You will marry Han Soo-jin. Ji-hoon met her gaze, unshaken. No. Silence. Again. But this time, it felt different. This wasn't defiance. This was war. You're willing to destroy everything, she whispered. For what? A stranger? Ji-hoon didn't answer. Because the truth was, he didn't fully understand it himself. All he knew was, that face, that moment, that look she gave him, right before everything fell apart. That night, he couldn't sleep. The video kept playing, over, and over, and over again. Not the slap, not the chaos. Her, Nancy. He zoomed in, paused at the exact second before impact. Her hand still on his shirt, her eyes slightly lifted, uncertain. Then fear. Not guilt, not calculation. Fear. Ji-hoon leaned back slowly, running a hand through his hair. I should have stopped it. The realization hit harder now. I should have said something. But he hadn't. And now, the whole world thought she was something she wasn't. His fingers tightened slightly around the phone. She wasn't seducing me. A pause. She was terrified. That was when he made the call. Find her. Across the city. Nancy was trying to disappear. It had been 3 days. 3 days of rejection. 3 days of whispers. 3 days of people looking at her like they already knew her story. And none of it was true. I'm sorry, we're not hiring. We'll call you. You're not a good fit for our image. Image. That word again. Nancy stepped out of another office building, her chest tight, her hands clenched around the strap of her bag. She didn't need to check her phone. She already knew. The video was still trending. Comments. Thousands of them. Gold digger. Embarrassing. She deserved that slap. Nancy swallowed hard. Her throat burned. One mistake. Her voice was barely above a whisper. And the whole world decided who I was. She hadn't even told her full story. No one asked. No one cared. That night, she sat alone in her small apartment. The money still untouched on the table. She hated it. Hated what it represented. Hated how it made her feel. But more than anything, she hated that she needed it. Days passed, and slowly, that money started disappearing. Food, transport, survival. Reality didn't care about pride. By the end of the week, Nancy was down to almost nothing. That was when the knock came. Soft, unexpected. Nancy frowned slightly, walking toward the door. She wasn't expecting anyone. Another knock. She hesitated, then opened it, and froze. Ji-hoon stood there. Same calm presence. Same unreadable expression. But this time, closer. Real. What are you doing here? Her voice came out sharper than she expected. I came to see you. Nancy let out a small, disbelieving laugh. Why? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at her. Really looked at her. Tired eyes. Guarded posture. A quiet kind of struggle she was trying to hide. I'm sorry. The words were simple, but they landed heavily. Nancy's expression hardened instantly. Sorry, she repeated. That's it. I should have. Yes, she cut him off. You should have. Silence. You stood there, she continued, her voice shaking now. You watched while she hit me, while they humiliated me, while I lost my job. Her breathing became uneven. And now you're here, saying sorry. Ji-hoon didn't interrupt, didn't defend himself. I didn't ruin your life, he said quietly. Nancy let out a bitter laugh. No. She stepped closer. Then who did? Another silence. I was distracted, he admitted. That caught her off guard. By what? A pause. You. Nancy blinked. What? I misread the situation, he continued. And by the time I realized it was too late, Nancy stared at him, searching his face, for arrogance, for mockery, for anything. But there was none, just honesty. And somehow, that made it worse. I don't need your apology, she said finally, stepping back. And I definitely don't need your help. Ji-hoon nodded once. I know. Then, he dropped the next line. You've been rejected from 7 jobs this week. Nancy froze. Her eyes narrowed. What? You graduated with a degree in accounting, he continued calmly. Top of her class. But no experience. No connections. Her chest tightened. How do you? You're running out of money. Silence. You shouldn't be, he added. Nancy's hands clenched. You had no right. I'm offering you a job. The words cut through everything. Nancy blinked. What? A real job, Ji-hoon said. Not charity. She stared at him, still trying to process. You're qualified, he continued. You just weren't given a chance. The words hit differently. Not pity, not condescension, recognition. And that shook her more than anything. I don't want anything from you, she said quickly. You don't have to want it. Another pause. Just take it. Nancy hesitated, her mind racing. This felt wrong, dangerous, complicated. Everything about him screamed trouble. And yet, opportunity, real, unavoidable. I don't trust you. Ji-hoon nodded. You don't have to. He turned slightly, then stopped. Just show up tomorrow. And then, he walked away, leaving Nancy standing there, conflicted, angry, confused, but most of all, tempted. The next morning, Nancy almost didn't go. She stood in front of the mirror longer than necessary, adjusting her shirt for the 3rd time. It wasn't new. Nothing she owned was, but she made sure it was neat, clean, presentable. Because if she was going to walk into his world, she wasn't going to look like she didn't belong. Just show up tomorrow. His words echoed in her mind. Simple, but heavy. Nancy exhaled slowly, then picked up her bag. The building was taller than anything she had ever worked in. Glass, steel, power. She paused outside for a second. People in tailored suits walked past her like they had somewhere important to be. Like they belonged. Unlike her. For a brief moment, she considered turning back. But then, she remembered the comments. The humiliation. The slap. Her jaw tightened. No, she muttered under her breath. I'm not running. And with that, she walked in. The moment the elevator doors opened on the executive floor, everything changed. Silence. Not the peaceful kind. The heavy kind. Eyes turned, one by one. And just like that, she knew. They recognized her. Whispers followed immediately. Low. Sharp. Unforgiving. Isn't that her? The girl from the video. What is she doing here? Nancy kept walking. Back straight. Step steady. Even though her chest felt tight, she had expected this. Prepared for it. But knowing something will happen, and actually living it, were 2 completely different things. Miss Nancy. The voice came from behind her. Professional. Neutral. She turned. A woman stood there, holding a tablet. Mr. Cam is expecting you. Of course he was. Nancy followed her silently. Every step felt heavier than the last. When they stopped in front of the office door, her heart started beating faster. Go in. Nancy nodded once, then pushed the door open. Ji-hoon was already there, seated behind his desk. Calm, composed, untouched by everything happening outside. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, you came. Nancy crossed her arms slightly. I said I would. He studied her briefly, not in a way that made her uncomfortable, but in a way that felt intentional. You'll be working under the finance department, he said. Your role is temporary for now. Temporary. Of course it was. You'll prove whether you stay or not. Nancy nodded. I understand. A pause. Good. And just like that, he returned to his work. Conversation over. Nancy stood there for a second longer than necessary, then turned and walked out. He didn't stop her. Didn't say anything else. But as she reached the door, she felt it. His gaze. Watching her. The office wasn't welcoming. It wasn't hostile either. It was worse. Cold. People didn't openly insult her. Not at first. But they didn't hide their judgment either. They watched, whispered, smirked. And Nancy, she worked. Head down. Focused. Silent. Because she knew one thing. She couldn't afford to fail here. Not again. But peace never lasts long. Especially not for someone like her. It happened just before noon. The elevator doors opened. And she walked in. Han Soo-jin. The air shifted instantly. Confidence. Authority. Control. Everything about her screamed power. Nancy felt it immediately. That same tension from the restaurant. That same warning. Their eyes met. And for a brief second, Soo-jin smiled. Not kindly. Knowingly. Well. Her voice cut through the room as she stepped forward. This is interesting. The entire office went quiet. Nancy didn't move. Didn't speak. She wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. I didn't expect to see you here, Soo-jin continued, her tone light, almost amused. But then again, she tilted her head slightly. Some people will do anything to climb. A pause. Even spill drinks. Soft laughter echoed around the room. Nancy's fingers tightened slightly against her desk. But she didn't react. Didn't look up. Didn't give her the fight she clearly wanted. That was her first mistake. Because Soo-jin didn't want silence. She wanted submission. And when she didn't get it, she escalated. Stand up. Nancy slowly lifted her gaze. Soo-jin was looking directly at her now. I said stand up. The room held its breath. Nancy stood. Good. Soo-jin smiled. Now introduce yourself. Nancy's jaw tightened slightly. But she spoke. My name is Nancy. That's all. Soo-jin raised a brow. No explanation. No apology. Silence. Soo-jin stepped closer. You embarrassed me in public, she said quietly. The least you can do is show some humility. Nancy met her gaze. I did my job. The room froze. That wasn't the answer Soo-jin expected. And for a second, something dangerous flashed across her eyes. But then she smiled again. Of course you did. She turned slightly. Which is why I have something perfect for you. Nancy didn't like the sound of that. At all. An hour later, she understood why. Stacks of files. Complex reports. Deadlines that made no sense. This has to be completed before the board meeting, Soo-jin said casually. Which starts in 2 hours. Nancy blinked. That's not possible. Soo-jin smiled. I know. And just like that, she walked away, leaving Nancy standing there. Set up. Trapped. The whispers started again. She's done. No way she can finish that. This is going to be embarrassing. Nancy stared at the files, her heart racing. This wasn't just work. This was a test. A trap. And if she failed, she knew exactly what would happen. Another humiliation. Another fall. Another reason for them to prove she didn't belong. Nancy took a slow breath, then sat down. Fine. Her hands moved. Fast. Precise. Focused. She blocked everything else out. The whispers. The pressure. The ticking clock. All of it. Gone. Time passed. 1 hour. Then another. And slowly, the impossible started to become possible. Across the room, Ji-hoon watched. Silent. Observant. He had seen the assignment. Knew exactly what Soo-jin was doing. And yet, he didn't intervene. Not yet. Because he wanted to see. Would she break? Would she run? Or would she fight? Nancy didn't look up once. Didn't complain. Didn't hesitate. She just worked. And that was unexpected. By the time the meeting started, Nancy stood up, files in hand. Complete. Perfect. The room fell silent. Soo-jin's expression didn't change. But her eyes did. Sharp. Cold. Surprised. Nancy walked forward, placed the files down. Your report. No attitude. No pride. Just quiet confidence. And for the first time, Ji-hoon's composure shifted. Slightly. Not visible to others. But enough. Because now, he wasn't just observing her. He was impressed. Later that evening, the office was quieter. Most people had left. Nancy was packing her things. Exhausted. Drained. You handled that well. Her body stiffened slightly. She turned. Ji-hoon stood there. Closer than before. Too close. I did my job, she replied. A pause. Their eyes met. And for a brief moment, something shifted. Unspoken. Tension. Then. Footsteps. Sharp. Approaching. Soojin. Of course. She stopped just inches away from Nancy. Too close. Deliberate. You think this is a job? She whispered. Nancy didn't move. Didn't respond. Soojin leaned in slightly, her voice dropping even lower. I can destroy you again. A pause. Anytime I want. Silence filled the space between them. Heavy. Threatening. And this time, Nancy felt it. Not fear. War. And somewhere behind her, Ji-hoon was still watching. Pressure didn't build slowly. It crashed. By the third day, everyone felt it. The call started early that morning. Not to Ji-hoon. To his father. To the board. To investors. Chairman Han wasn't being subtle anymore. If this marriage does not go through, consider our partnership over. That one sentence was enough. Stocks dipped. Meetings were cancelled. Voices lowered in hallways. Power was shifting. And everyone knew why. Ji-hoon stood in the conference room, silent as the board members argued. This is reckless. You're risking everything. Over a personal matter? Personal. Ji-hoon's gaze didn't move. This is not personal, his father said sharply. This is survival. Ji-hoon finally spoke. Then survive without me. The room went still. His mother, seated at the far end, slowly looked up. You're not thinking clearly, she said. I am. No, she replied, her voice colder now. You're being distracted. And this time, her eyes shifted, not to him, to the glass wall behind him, where Nancy stood outside, organizing documents. Unaware. Exposed. It happened fast. Miss Nancy. The assistant's voice made her turn. Madam is asking for you. Nancy frowned slightly. Madam. She already knew who that meant. Ji-hoon saw it happen. But he didn't move. Not yet. Because he knew his mother. And he knew. This wasn't going to be quiet. Nancy stepped into the private lounge. The door closed behind her. Ji-hoon's mother was already seated. Elegant. Controlled. Deadly. Sit. Nancy didn't. I'll stand. A pause. Something flickered in the older woman's eyes. Disapproval. Do you know who you're speaking to? She asked calmly. Yes. Then act like it. Nancy said nothing. Because this wasn't about respect. This was about power, and she could feel it pressing down on her already. Ji-hoon's mother stood slowly, walking toward her. Each step measured. You've caused enough damage already, she said. Do you even understand what you've done? Nancy swallowed slightly, but held her ground. I didn't. Don't. The word cut her off instantly. I'm not interested in your excuses. Silence. Then, the line came. Know your place. Nancy's chest tightened. You're a mistake. A pause. That should have stayed hidden. The words landed clean. Sharp. Designed to cut. And for a split second, they did. Nancy felt it. That sting. That familiar weight of being seen as less. But then, she steadied. I didn't ask to be here, she said quietly. Exactly, Ji-hoon's mother replied. And yet, here you are, standing in a place you don't belong. Nancy's hands clenched at her sides. Then fire me. That made the older woman pause. You think this is about a job? Nancy didn't answer. Because she already knew. This is about my son, she continued. And whatever illusion you've created in his mind. I didn't create anything. Then why is he defending you? Silence. Nancy didn't have an answer for that. Because she didn't understand it either. The door opened. And everything changed. Ji-hoon stepped in. Come. But his eyes. Not come. Enough. The word wasn't loud. But it carried weight. His mother turned slowly. Perfect timing, she said. I was just correcting a mistake. Ji-hoon walked past her. Straight to Nancy. And for the first time, he didn't keep his distance. He stood beside her. Not behind. Not away. Beside. She's not a mistake. The room went cold. His mother's expression hardened. You're choosing this, she asked quietly. Ji-hoon didn't hesitate. I'm choosing what's right. That girl. Her name is Nancy. The correction was immediate. Sharp. And final. Silence followed. Heavy. Because now, this wasn't tension. This was a line being drawn. The fallout was instant. Soojin didn't wait. She moved first. If Ji-hoon was going to humiliate her, she would destroy Nancy. Completely. The next day, the article dropped. Viral waitress exposed. The truth behind the seduction scandal. Nancy saw it before anyone could warn her. Her hands trembled as she scrolled. Lies. Half-truths. Manipulated clips. Painted perfectly. She wasn't just a mistake anymore. She was a calculated opportunist. A woman who targeted wealthy men. A liar. A manipulator. Her chest tightened. Not again. Not like this. The whispers returned. Louder this time. Did you see this? I knew something was off. She played him. Nancy stood frozen. The office felt smaller. Colder. Closing in. And for the first time since she started, she felt it. Fear. Real fear. Because this wasn't just humiliation anymore. This was erasure. Ji-hoon saw it. The moment she read it. The moment her expression shifted. And something in him snapped. The emergency meeting was called within the hour. Board members. Executives. Tension thick enough to choke on. Soo-jin sat there. Composed. Untouchable. Until Ji-hoon spoke. This ends now. All eyes turned. The article is false, he continued. And it will be taken down. Soo-jin tilted her head slightly. On what grounds? On mine. A pause. You don't have that authority, she replied calmly. Ji-hoon leaned forward slightly. I do. Silence. Then. The final move. You're removed from the project. That did it. Soo-jin's composure cracked. Just slightly. You don't get to make that decision. I just did. The room erupted. Voices. Arguments. Chaos. But Ji-hoon didn't look at anyone else. Only her. And for the first time, Soo-jin realized something. She was losing. That night, Nancy stood alone in the hallway. Everything felt unreal. Too fast. Too much. You should be more careful. She turned. Ji-hoon. Closer again. Always closer now. Why are you doing this? She asked. A pause. Then. He stepped closer. Too close. Her breath caught. I didn't come back for guilt. His voice dropped slightly. I came back because I couldn't forget you. Silence. Nancy's heart slammed against her chest. This wasn't safe. This wasn't simple. This was dangerous. Don't, she whispered. But she didn't step back. Didn't move. And that said more than anything else. Across the building, Soo-jin watched. And this time, she didn't react immediately. She planned, carefully, because if humiliation didn't break Nancy, destruction would. The next morning, everything exploded. A new video, worse than before, edited, manipulated, designed to ruin her completely. Nancy stared at her phone, frozen. This time, there was no misunderstanding. Only damage. Irreversible. Her hands shook. I can't do this. Her voice broke. And somewhere behind her, Ji-hoon heard it. He took one look at the screen. And made a decision. Final. Unshakable. I'm ending this. A pause. All of it. I'm ending this, all of it. Silence followed. Not the calm kind. The kind that comes before something breaks. Ji-hoon didn't wait for permission. Didn't look back. Didn't hesitate. Because this time, he meant it. The announcement went public the next morning. Engagement between Kam Ji-hoon and Han Soo-jin officially terminated. No explanation. No apology. Just fact. And just like that, everything exploded. Calls flooded in. Investors panicked. News outlets tore the story apart from every angle. Power alliance collapses overnight. Business empire at risk. Love or scandal? But inside his family home, it wasn't headlines. It was war. You've lost your mind. His mother's voice echoed through the hall. Sharp. Uncontrolled. Ji-hoon stood still. Unmoved. You've humiliated us, she continued. Do you understand what you've done? Chairman Han has already begun pulling out. Let him. The words hit harder than anything else. His father stepped forward now. Anger barely contained. This is bigger than you. Ji-hoon met his gaze. No, he said calmly. This is exactly about me. You're throwing away everything we built. I'm walking away from something that was never mine. Silence. That was the truth. They didn't want to hear. His mother laughed bitterly. All this for that girl. Ji-hoon didn't answer immediately. Because this wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about choosing. You don't get to decide my life. Final. Absolute. His mother's expression shifted. Not just anger now. Something colder. Then don't come back. The words landed without hesitation. If you walk out that door for her. A pause. You are no longer my son. Silence filled the room. Heavy. unforgiving. Ji-hoon didn't argue, didn't plead. He simply nodded once, then turned, and walked away. Nancy didn't know any of this. All she knew was that everything was falling apart again. The second video had done its damage. People didn't whisper anymore. They judged openly. She stood in her apartment, staring at her phone. Unread messages, missed calls, notifications she couldn't bring herself to open. I can't keep doing this. Her voice cracked, because no matter what she did, it followed her. The humiliation, the lies, the weight of being seen as something she wasn't. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Soft, familiar. Nancy froze. For a second, she considered ignoring it, but something in her chest told her she already knew. She walked to the door slowly, opened it. Ji-hoon stood there, but something was different. No suit, no distance, no walls, just him. What happened? She asked immediately. He looked at her, really looked at her. It's over. Nancy frowned. What is? My engagement. Silence. You ended it. Yes. Her chest tightened. Why? Ji-hoon stepped closer. Not enough to overwhelm. Just enough to close the space between them. Because I should have done it a long time ago. Nancy shook her head slightly. You don't destroy your life over something like this. It's already destroyed, he replied calmly. That made her pause, because there was no regret in his voice. Only clarity. They've cut ties, he continued. Business. Family. Everything. Nancy's breath caught. Ji-hoon, but he shook his head. Don't. A pause. I made this decision. Silence stretched between them. Heavy. You didn't ask me to, she said quietly. I know. Then why? That question lingered. Because this time, there was no escaping it. Ji-hoon took another step forward, close enough now that she could feel it. His presence. His warmth. I didn't come back for guilt. Her breath slowed. I came back because I couldn't forget you. The words settled between them. Deep. Unavoidable. Nancy looked away first. This isn't right, she whispered. Everything around you is falling apart because of me. No, he said firmly. Because of me. That made her look back at him. I chose this. A pause. And I would choose it again. Her heart tightened. Because for the first time, this didn't feel like power. Or control. It felt real. But real was dangerous. You don't even know me, she said. I know enough. Another step closer. You're not what they said. Her eyes softened slightly. You didn't run. A beat. You didn't break. Silence. And you still showed up. Nancy swallowed. Because that was the part no one saw. Except him. Weeks later. Seol wasn't home anymore. The decision came fast. Clean. Final. Ji-hoon left everything behind. The company. The expectations. The control. And with it, the version of himself that belonged to that world. They relocated. Far enough that the noise faded. No headlines. No whispers. No watching eyes. Just quiet. A small city. Simple. Unfamiliar. Safe. For the first time, Nancy could breathe. No one knew her here. No one judged her. She wasn't a scandal. She was just Nancy. And somehow, that felt unreal. Life didn't magically become perfect. They argued, clashed, learned each other slowly. Because this wasn't a fantasy. It was real. Two people from completely different worlds, trying to meet somewhere in the middle. But through all of it, one thing stayed constant. He never treated her like she needed saving. And she never let herself be seen as someone who did. It happened on a quiet evening. No crowd. No grand setting. Just the two of them. Sitting outside. The sky painted in soft colors. Peaceful. Ji-hoon looked at her. Calm. Certain. I have something to ask you. Nancy raised a brow slightly. That sounds serious. It is. Her heart picked up slightly. Because his tone was different. Not distant. Not controlled. Honest. He reached into his pocket. And for a moment, time slowed. Nancy stared at him. You don't have to. I know. He cut her off gently. I'm not doing this because you need me. A pause. Or because I feel responsible. He stepped closer, holding her gaze. I'm doing this because I choose you. Silence. The world seemed to stop. Not because you're perfect. A faint smile. But because you're real. Nancy's chest tightened. And I want a life with you. A beat. As equals. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. Because this wasn't rescue. It was choice. And that made it more powerful than anything else. Yes. The word came out softly. But it was enough. The wedding wasn't accepted. Not by his family. They didn't come. Didn't acknowledge it. Didn't bless it. To them, she didn't exist. But this time, it didn't matter. Because Ji-hoon didn't look back. Not once. Clapperboard final scene. The air was quiet. Peaceful. Nothing like the chaos that started it all. Nancy stood outside their home, watching the sunset. No cameras. No whispers. No judgment. Just stillness. She exhaled slowly. The world tried to break me. Her voice was soft. But somehow, she turned slightly. Ji-hoon stood behind her. Calm. Steady. It led me to him. He stepped closer. Not to shield her, but to stand beside her. And for the first time, everything felt right. Months later, the story still existed online. Clips, comments, opinions, but it no longer defined her. Because the truth was something they never saw. Not the strength it took to stand back up. Not the courage it took to stay. And definitely not the choice it took to love again. Nancy closed her laptop, a faint smile on her lips. Because for once, she didn't feel the need to prove anything. Not to them. Not to the world. And not even to herself. She was already enough. And somewhere in the next room, Ji-hoon called her name. Not as power. Not as control. But as something simple. Real. Home.